There's a lot that's going on, and I need to break it down for you. But I'm going to play this first, and we're going to listen.
Every affordability crisis that's confronting the American people today, it is traceable directly to a problem caused by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Why did homes get so unaffordable? Because we had 20 million illegal aliens in this country taking homes that ought by right to go to American citizens. Why did tax bills get so unaffordable? Because Democrats were raising taxes while congressional Republicans under the president's leadership were now cutting taxes. Why did food get so expensive? Because we printed trillions of dollars and threw it into green scams that made our agricultural economy suffer while Americans were paying higher prices for food. On every single one of those issues, Mr. President, I think we've made incredible progress. But it would be preposterous to fix every problem caused over the last 4 years in just 10 months. I think that we've done incredibly good. But what I see over the next year, and you heard Brooke talk about joy and gratitude. What I really think this season represents for me, and I think for the entire administration, is that we have now done incredible work to fix what Joe Biden broke. And I think that next year, in American growth and American prosperity could be the best year that we've had in the United States of America. It's going to happen because we're all working hard. It's going to happen because we have the greatest country in the world. But I think for congressional Democrats in particular, if they want to talk about affordability, they ought to look in the mirror.
Now remember, the Republican Congress, we've had control of both houses, and they have done nothing. 50 bills, and we've had control this whole time because they're all bought off and blackmailed or whatever else. Trump has been using whatever leverage to get all these other things through. And I went through, I think it was in August, and substantiated what the vice president is saying, that yes, the reforms that were done has been all through the executive branch. And I went through literally every single department and agency to figure out, okay, are all of these reforms good? What's going on? They are. Administrative and policy-wise, okay? They went through and they did a lot of good. And it's all for a rebuild. But rebuild from what? Remember, when I started this last year, I said $37 trillion worth of debt, you don't pay it off, you collapse it. We're now seeing how this is going to be done. And let me explain. So, with these long-term bonds, we know what is going on here. Countries are dumping treasuries. The Treasury Department is doing strategic buybacks of those bonds. Why? To shield parties. And the Federal Reserve, they're saying they're going to be buying long-term bonds, $80 billion a month. But they're banned from monetizing with the CBDC ban. Okay? It needs to be passed in the Clarity Act. It was attached to the Clarity Act, but it's stalled. And it needs to be passed. But we're seeing the end run now. Because Ripple got the banking license, which means they're a custodian for reserve. They can be a custodian for the reserves instead of BNY Mellon, which means they can react instantly to market fluctuations of collateral. So right now they're collateralizing the RLUSD with short-term treasuries. But eventually, and because the DTCC is tokenizing the market, which means there's going to be no fraud, and it can be liquid then, well, they can swap out with tokenized assets. Because remember, BRICS is launching the unit, which is backing by gold and some currencies, and they have to compete internationally with that. So the bond market chaos is going to come. And after the Clarity Act is passed, they can use the text to settle and guidance on further tokenizing of assets like commodities. So when Trump starts to talk about debt based on fraud and basically stiffing, not paying it back, that's going to provide the cover for the banks who are sitting on $300 billion worth of unrealized losses to then unload those treasuries. And remember, because Clarity Act is allowing the text to be used, they can now use the Nostro Vostro to backfill on those losses that they're going to take on the treasuries by selling them out to the Fed. So it's transferring all of this debt over to the Fed while they can't participate. And the Trump accounts, they're going to start to be operational July 5th. And they're going to be buying market-wide stuff. But do you think he's going to want to buy at this highly overvalued, corrupt market? Hell no. I mean, even Michael Burry called the bluff that these AI companies, they are doing accounting tricks with depreciation, and they don't have the energy requirements necessary to fulfill what they're saying. So they're all overvalued. So this is about shifting all of this debt that's out there over to the Fed. Meanwhile, the stablecoin issuers, they're going to be collateralizing based off of short-term treasuries. And that keeps the government going. But at the end of the day, the central bank is the problem. Why? Because they allow for this market to be there for the Congress to deficit spend. Because when they can spend and run a deficit and sell that debt from that deficit spending, that keeps it going. It keeps it endless. And we all pay for it. Now, the vice president was right about the illegals. But how'd they get here? It's because of the NGOs that were using our tax dollars that came from the fucking money printer. So now we are fighting against them. We're fighting against the money printer, and we need to end the system. You end the system by competing issuers over a decentralized method of payment. And with the XRPL, it's decentralized. Issuers can compete freely and fairly, but the users can take their value and go elsewhere if the issuer becomes tyrannical. And remember, the Fair Labor Standards Act requires wages to be paid in unrestricted cash or equivalent. That gives the employers the option to pay out into stablecoins. And the issuer matters. The issuer totally matters. And all of these other precedents that I went through in that other video were about company script and how we've already kind of went through this about programmable money. We don't need to be worried because these issuers need to compete with one another. But remember about these units, okay? There's stablecoins that are collateralized by debt. Then there's stablecoins that are collateralized by tokenized real-world assets. Whether that's going to be commodities in the future or because of the DTCC tokenizing the stock market, Ripple or any of these other stablecoin issuers can swap out its short-term treasuries like that. Because they have to compete with the BRICS unit on the international market, because that's going to keep continuing. They're backing by gold and their currencies. The enemy is the central bank, because it's an artificial monopoly, man. That's how it's been enforced, because of legal tender status. But if you settle outside the system, remove value from it, the Ponzi collapses. And that's exactly what this end run is all about. And from now till July 5th, when the Trump accounts go live, well, man, the bond market chaos is going to come, which is going to force a stock market crash in order for the Trump accounts to buy low and in an honest market. Meanwhile, these issuers are going to be keeping the government funded basically by off of the short-term treasuries. But eventually they're going to have to compete internationally with the BRICS unit. So they're going to have to swap out of those treasuries with tokenized assets. And that's what's important about Ripple getting the banking license, is that they can do their own reserves. This is, I've been saying how political all this is, and it is. We have to get the Clarity Act passed. And that Clarity Act must have the CBDC ban inside of it. Now, y'all, it takes a lot to read all this, to understand it, and to put this all together for everybody to understand. Send a tip, subscribe. I'm the only one that's been doing this pretty honest the whole time, man. Just so you can understand what all these stakes are. And remember, the whole Venezuela thing, that's about oil. And yes, they're about narco-terrorism and all this other stuff. But it's about oil, because our infrastructure is designed to process those shitty type of grades of oil that Venezuela has. And yeah, they're basically a forward operating base for China and Russia and all this other. I mean, what matters is it's Trump Monroe Doctrine on our hemisphere, and we have to get more energy throughput for our infrastructure to bring down costs. That's for the AI stuff too, and for all this other, because nuclear reactors, that takes 5-6 years to get online. We need throughput now because things are breaking. So that's what that's all about, man. I mean, it sucks. I don't want war, but at the end of the day, it's not like that regime is a saint. And the European leaders, they're all organizing to send their youth, the flower of their youth, over to die against Russia. They're not going to send the migrants. No. They're going to send their young people, their citizens, to destroy the culture. Meanwhile, Trump's trying to force them to take the deal, Ukraine, Zelensky, and everything that he's given them till Christmas to do it. So everyone needs to pray. Everyone needs to send this around, man. Because I'm trying to educate you on what all this is about. Because we have to collapse the central bank. And having these issuers collateralized based on real world assets is where we need to go. Clarity Act needs to happen for all these places to use these techs, especially for the tokenized assets, and the further guidance for all the regulatory agencies they can use to do that. So, this is what it is, man. Because this is the method of payment. This is XRPL. All right. The issuers put their unit on there, and we are just the senders and receivers. We got wallets. Okay, but it's the issuer and how they're collateralizing their individual unit that matters. It can't be all based on debt, because that keeps the deficit financing going by the Congress. We have to move towards an asset monetary system in order to end this. XRP is just the means of exchange in between it all. So let's stop it there.